I probably sound like a broken record on this one, but I can't express how much I've appreciated the character style of this series. The villains have all been very likable and very enjoyable, and even the main villain, who just seems to be this completely unhinged lunatic, like Azudaroth, has been an extremely entertaining villain for this. Like what? He's only been in the series. I mean, I guess for the sake of the series, he's been in for half at this point. But he's only been in for like 25, 26 chapters or something like that. Like less than 30. And he's already like he has so much personality, and there's so much to him that just it comes off as enjoyable. He doesn't seem like he's some super layered villain, but at the same time, you can see like aspects of obviously depth to his character, like talking about how like he's just felt numb and sad this whole time he's just been alone. And it's not like this is some like super deep character setup that like is impossible to decipher. It's like, okay, you can really easily understand him. He just basically this guy is, for his area, he's so powerful, nobody's been able to really fight him, and he's not been able to get a rise out of it. I imagine, because one thing too about the series is we know that Azudaroth is one of the three great demon lords. This is shonen, so I feel like it's pretty easy to assume that out of the three, he's probably the weakest. Like, he's probably the youngest out of the three, and so because of that, he is the least overall experienced. Because like when you look at like the setup, I would assume at least one of the great demon lords, his group structure is more going to be more like a kingdom or like a military. Whereas Azudaroth and the 13th Club, they're more like a gang in a lot of ways. Like they aren't as overall organized and structured. So it would make sense if they are, again, they're not like, the pushovers, but in comparison to the other two great demon lords and their forces, it would make sense of why these guys are the first ones up. And again, if this is the first, like this is supposed to be the opener out of the three, it's done a fantastic job at, again, displaying their characters and just letting them all exist outside of just being, I'm a bad demon guy, I'm here to cause trouble. But the chapter starts out essentially right where the clash left off a few chapters ago, where Kiyoshi and Azudaroth are just colliding fists. You get this cool like lightning strike come down like from it. I'm guessing that's just from like the nature of their attacks. Like I'm curious if we're gonna get something like that, where like when you have characters at X amount of power level, like their powers clashing results in like environmental effects. I've seen a couple series do that where it's just like a passive sign of like two big people fighting. I'm wondering if that's going to be a case, or if it's just for dramatic, scene setting. It's just cool to see this big lightning bolt set this castle-looking building on fire over at an amusement park as they're clashing. But you just have cool moments where Kiyoshi is just doing, first off, just general display of his abilities. He's using like Poseidon. He's just launching attacks. I like how the designs became like little berserk symbols when he's using Poseidon now. But as it were, he's using, again, right now he's not using any of his ultra attacks, and the ultra moves are weird. I'm really hoping we get a couple more displays of like people using their ultimate abilities, because like the ultra moves just seem to be, I don't have a substitute for like a new thing in this category, but I have a buffed version of one of my normal moves. Whereas like it just seems to be like a placeholder power up spot. Whereas this is like one of his normal moves. It's just he's using Moonrise Kingdom Poseidon. He's used it a couple times before. In the previous fight, Azudaroth smashed these. Whereas here now he's like, when is the last time I was supposed, I had to dodge an attack? And he gets up, just hops over it, completely elated that he's like, oh man, I had to dodge this not to get hurt. And Kiyoshi's still coming in, like he gets prepped up to look like to use Hades Meteor, and Azudaroth just like complete crowd controls him. He puts those little black like spiked orbs, just like a few of them, like two of them, just flicks right at Kiyoshi to push him back, and then he just like lands down on a carousel, and he's like sitting on a horse, just having a good time. I really like Azudaroth's just general fun personality in this. Again, it's like when you have a character who, it's clear that like the whole thing about him like feeling numb and him being alone, there's gonna be some backstory to that. I'm guessing that's gonna be more of like when we find out more about him in depth, we're gonna get like some flashback where it shows like him and some of the other demons, or like at what point he like lost all his joy and he's been sitting for centuries just essentially as like a numb dead body just walking around. So seeing him just have again all these like silly little character traits has been very enjoyable. Let me see what panels I completely forgot what other panels I brought into this one really fast. Okay, that's from a previous one. That's not correct. I know it was like up from where it was. So it's like when you look at okay, this is I mean, I don't want to talk about the Titanomaki one. I didn't here we go. I just wanted to talk about him in general first off. For one, we know about Azudaroth in the previous fights. He was not at full power because he was partially manifested. And here he's like saying he's at full power, but this is, I would assume, not his true power that Kyoko was talking about. Whatever his big trump card, probably like power up form or something, he's gonna use like, you know, in a couple chapters, because this is where he's just starting to get into the fight, I would really assume, like where he's really kind of like getting his, like, you know, putting skin in the game, getting his chest out and ready to actually clash with full force. Because here he isn't, again, I don't think he's like drawing out all his power, but he is actually fully manifested. He has access to all his powers, so it would make sense of like where now he is really at his full threat level. That's why with this, I like the entire reason I'm starting on my words. The entire reason I brought up the whole thing with Kiyoshi's ultra moves, we know at least right now his strongest moves are like the Lux category. We still don't know what like the power differentials are by detail of like, say, ones that are specifically for your crest, and then what is like I don't know if it's like an outside technique or if like the Lux techniques are fused, because Fiat Lux, as far as we know, that is Kiyoshi's overall like top strongest move. There was a while where we weren't sure of where certain things sat within his move set, but I think at the end of the Azudaroth fight, the first time, the fact that Kiyoshi, when he's like, I have to do this now, when he went to go pull out Fiat Lux, and it's, I believe, the only time that he's ever tried to use a power and he just hasn't had enough power for it. So it must be demanding in terms of how much perceptive power goes into it. And here, like, we see him use this new move, Lux Magna Arcus, which it looks really cool. I love the powers in the verse. I've mentioned that before. I love the crests. They remind me so much of Maker Magic from Fairy Tail. Like, you know, so it's not like this is the only series that's ever done this. It's just like in the generalized style where it's like, okay, you have an element or an attribute, and you get manipulation and control over it, and seemingly the only limitation is the skill level and imagination of the user. We know that as well from Hitsugi, where Hitsugi was able to make boiling water not from like, oh yeah, just imagine the water heating up. He went in specifically for vibrating the molecules in order to heat up the water. So it has to be way more, you know, user selected. It has to, I would imagine, like if you were going to do the opposite, like I wanted ice, you would have to probably think of it more so of like, oh, I have to mess with the molecules to slow them down and create ice, or, you know, whatever process you need to do to get to X. If you want to make like steam or something to make like a veil, it's not just like, oh, I imagine it's steam. You would have to think about the process, I would assume, of getting it to get to that way naturally. It's like it's going to go through a natural process, but you have the ability to kind of, you know, put your hand in on that and force it in certain directions. But it was a really cool, just again, a really good shonen moment where he's like, you know, the Azudaroth is getting fully powered up. He's just trying to get his all his stuff ready, and he goes for another Titanomaki, and he's like, oh yeah, this one is going to be way more powerful than the last one. Does the whole shonen thing where it's like, okay, I think that this was an indicator for that too. Is let me pull up. I do want to look at this sick panel. It's just really cool looking. Like, and it's simplistic, but it's just badass in general. Where it's like, oh yeah, just an energy bow where he's charging it, but it's like the pose for it. Again, he's using a bow. I always give people with a bow props, because I feel like bows are one of the most underappreciated weapons when it comes to like anime manga. And I what's funny, I made a joke about like the series. The series, in a lot of ways, like the easiest way to kind of describe it in like a few seconds is like, I always say it's like if you took Austin, Yuno, and role reversed them between Hitsugi and Kiyoshi, because it's like if Yuno joined the Black Bulls instead. And again, it's easiest, fastest like TLDR way I can describe it. Otherwise, it's like, you know, some form, you know, you can use something for like Gojo to compare for Kiyoshi, because he's similar in that super prodigy figure, you know, young child that just, clearly this guy, he's got the world's hopes on his shoulders, but he's just inexperienced and too young at the moment. Whereas I think the Yuno one makes sense because he's similar-ish in style. He's not the same, obviously, but it's similar-ish that you can kind of look at and be like, okay, for a lot of people that have touched like Black Clover and stuff, it's easy to kind of be like, oh, I can see what you're going for without having to go into extreme detail. Obviously, there's a lot of differences between the series, but it's just, it's the quick summary that's the easiest for me to go off of. But like I said, I give props for his bow. I've been doing that for a long time. I think my unfairness, I guess, just bias. You just go straight for bias. It was like Gray when his bow, and it's like every time he would use something other than a bow for a specific fight season, I'm like, get back to the bow, man. And then started to do that. I'm like, God damn it, get to the bow. But all these poor bow dudes are getting they get oppressed. But after that point, he just drops this move. He shoots right through the Titanomaki, and you have Azudaroth dodge it. And it's just a really cool moment because it shows the power of his attack. And I don't think that this is obviously not one of Kiyoshi's like, oh yeah, this is now my one top strongest move. It takes a huge portion of power out of me. I would assume any of his Lux abilities, like actual ones, not like the bowling one from early in the series, like actual Lux attacks, have to be stronger, I would assume, than his normal ones. Because one, he does the pose for it, like he crosses over his two crests. So I would assume it has to do with like the two crests combined. Like maybe this is the style, because there's one thing I would really like to figure out about the verse. Is there a general value difference between having two of the same crest, like Hitsugi and Tsurugi, or is it better to have two different crests like Kiyoshi has? Because there is like, I wonder if like having two of the same crest, there's like some form of ability that you can get out of that. Like maybe you fuse and they become even better. Like you just essentially are getting a mega version of what you already have. Versus like if you combining two, you'd be fusing them into a new area, but at the same time it'd be like, okay, well, I would assume that mastering two completely different abilities and then mastering a fusion of them is completely different than doing the same ability twice. And that, because I would assume that like when on the second arm, you would mostly just have to get muscle memory if you're not ambidextrous, and then after that point, like you're just fusing it into a better version of what you already have. So it's probably not nearly as difficult. But he goes for this big attack, shoots right through the Titanomaki. I love too the parallels between him and Sakaki in the chapter of the way that they're just talking to their opponents. And I wasn't too worried about Sakaki and Yuta and Mukurojima in their fight because Yuta is still in base. He hasn't used his demon contract at all. And Mukurojima, I would assume, is around the same way. He seems really silly because even right after the part where you get to him and the first round of their fight was off screen and they're hurt, the next moment they Yuta's injured still, but obviously he has his power up form that he still has to drop. Mukurojima's healed. Like he's completely fine by the time he's like, all right, round two. And he ends up getting in this cool pose where he's got his arms crossed over Yuta. I'm wondering if it's going to be similar to how the Exorcist contracted with a demon. They get their they have the whole like step in the shadow and that like it unlocks their combat form. I wonder if there is a demon equivalent where if instead of it's like he's just going to possess him and he's going to get new powers and stuff, where it's like he gets to use Yuta's body, but in the process they're able to essentially become stronger than them individually. Because one thing about Mukurojima I would really like to see is indifference between him and the other demon lords. Is he is clearly he's a scientist. He's in some form of experimental dude. So I would assume that he isn't just like, he should be stronger than Kurose in general, but I'm going to assume that when it comes to fighting him, a lot of his scary moves are probably more so, he pulls out some invention, like some creation. He pulls out a potion that does X, Y, or Z, where he's like, oh, if I drink this, I'm able to gain the powers of, Tanjinchi and Kurose at the same time for a brief period of time. Something like where he just has all these cheat moves where it's just all these prep potions or trinkets or inventions that really kind of put him as, like, again, a more tactical opponent rather than, just a straight offensive one. Because it would set him different from the other ones, but it also show that he's a little bit smarter. And I think that that's going to be the case of when we get to him. Because I think that what's going to happen is that, because we already had Kurose and Tanjinchi both were taken out. it seems like the fight is going to be way more focused on Azudaroth versus Kiyoshi, and that the Mukurojima Yuta versus Sakaki fight, I don't think that that's going to be as focused, because personally, you know, this is my theory. I don't think that Sakaki is going to die. I'm pretty sure he's going to get captured, and maybe Yuta and Mukurojima are going to take Sakaki to one of the other demon lords, and it's going to be like one of those bits where it's like, well, my boss is dead. My best option is to go join one of these other demon lord squads, and he brings Sakaki as like a trade. I think that would make a lot of sense personally, but as it were, do I have any more pictures in this? I'm trying to remember if I had any other ones specifically. I don't think so. Either way, I mean, this is probably the coolest one. I love the way that his cape has this cool design, like extra with like the cool black flame looking thing, and then the skulls behind him. He's got like that cool energy eye look to him. But this has just gone into like such a cool opening fight. I think this series has such strong potential. It's been gaining more attention online, which I like. It seems to be gaining a little bit more traction, and from what I've seen, the volumes have been selling fairly well, but it's more so, I think that I wish we'd get the numbers for it. As far as I've at least paid attention, is that the volumes sell fine, but it's the fact that they keep getting reprints, because the volume 1 reprinted, volume 2 reprinted, and I'd have to find the page, but when volume 3 was coming up, it said that volume 1 and 2 are reprinting as well. And volume 4's cover just got shown, so whenever that goes out soon, I'm wondering what exactly if we can find another one. If we get another thing that says like the previous volumes were reprinted again, I will absolutely save it, because I want to talk about that. But as it were, I think this series is fantastic. It's definitely, like, right now, it's my favorite out of the new gen. The second one I'd say is Galaxia's, but the thing that Kiyoshi has over Galaxia's is bi-weekly now. So it's going to be moving at a little bit of a slower pace, and the thing that Kiyoshi had on it that I think it's going to be hard for Galaxia's and Infinity, the other ones, to keep up, is I think Kiyoshi has the best characters out of the new gen. Because relatively, I mentioned this before, almost every single character is very likable. Like even it's like Yuta's like a scummy traitor. He has like all these like good villain moments where he just, even though he's getting the shit kicked out of him, he has these cool like moments where he seems like he's still got a plan, he's still got something sly going on, and I like that about him. The only time we've had villains and characters that are just not likable are ones that are intentionally supposed to be not likable. I've thought about before, like Senpei Yenma, like he just clearly, that guy's just a bozo. Where it's like Azudaroth is fun. Azudaroth is a fun villain. He's fun to watch just go crazy, and his it seemed like more of a joke at first, but I think he actually has romantic feelings for Kiyoshi. I think he actually loves him, because it might literally just be like a Joker Batman thing, but he seems to actually have like romantic feelings in the way that I don't know if he wants to actually hook up with Kiyoshi. I would assume no, but I think it's more of like, again, like I think everything but kind of thing, where it's like there wouldn't be anything lewd, but it's like he would want everything up until that point. Like he just wants to be with Kiyoshi forever, but they just fight. He's like combat in love with him. He's not in anything inappropriate. He's like, listen, I can't fight the Chris Hansen Exorcist. Like, he's too powerful. He's like, listen, this is as far as I go. I've already talked to him. He's good. But as it were, the series is just so solid. And it's like, you look at like the end of the chapter when you have like the cool bit with Sakaki and Kiyoshi, and they're both in sync, doing the whole like, bring it. They're gonna exorcise the hell out of their opponent. It's just badass. It was just a cool moment. It was really cool between the main character again and his idol character, both having this really cool moments. I don't think Sakaki's is going to end well for him. I can see him winning, but something happens to where he doesn't he beats Yuta and Sakaki, or sorry, he beats Yuta and Mukurojima, but something happens at the end of the fight where maybe he rolls a loss and he ends up losing the fight just based off bad luck, and maybe then he gets captured. But we'll see. Either way, I'd love to figure out what's going on in the next chapter and figure out where the series is going next. The next couple of chapters are going to be intense, and I can't wait to see, stuff about like the other demon lords, and then when we get back to other characters in the verse, like the Demon Realm Special Forces. Those are, I think all the squads are cool. I appreciate that the squad is a little bit smaller set squads with just like the 3 primarily than tiny little sub squads. But the Demon Realm Special Forces, those are like the guys that I'm most interested in, because again, these are special forces. These are the guys that are gonna all be like wild cards and crazy. I assume there's going to be at least like one character within there that's like a cross paladin level, but he's like, I'm not for that. I'm over here. But we'll see. Either way, talk to you guys on the next one. Bye.